My name is Cora Bellamy. I am 66 years old. What I'm about to tell you changed my life forever. The day of my husband Walter's funeral was the quietest and saddest day of my life. I stood by his grave, my heart breaking. But then, something happened that made me feel even more afraid. I got a text message from a number I didn't know. My hand shook as I read it. I'm alive. That's not me in the casket. I couldn't believe my eyes. My fingers trembled as I typed back. Who are you? The reply came quickly. I can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons. I felt like the ground disappeared under my feet. My heart pounded in my chest. I looked at Grayson and Preston, my two sons, who stood near the casket. Their faces were calm, too calm. Their hugs felt cold. Their tears didn't seem real. Something was wrong. For 42 years, Walter was my best friend, my safe place, and the love of my life. We met when I was only 24 years old in our small hometown called Spring Creek. We grew up on the same dusty roads and had simple dreams. Back then, life was hard. I worked as a house cleaner to take care of my sick mother. Walter fixed bicycles in a small shop his father left him. We didn't have much money, but we had something money could never buy: true love. I still remember the first time Walter spoke to me. It was a Tuesday morning. I was walking to the market in a faded green dress and worn-out shoes. Walter stepped out of his shop with grease-covered hands and gave me a shy smile that made me fall in love right away. Good morning, Cora, he said softly. Need me to check your bike? I didn't even have a bike, but I made up an excuse just to talk to him. That first conversation turned into long talks under the big oak tree in Town Square Park. Those talks turned into promises of love forever. Soon after, we had a simple wedding full of hope. The first years were tough. We lived in a small house with a tin roof. When it rained, we had to put pots everywhere to catch the water that leaked in. But even then, we were happy. Walter worked from sunrise to sunset at his shop, and I sewed clothes for women in town. When Grayson was born, I felt like my heart would burst from happiness. He had his father's big eyes and my smile. 2 years later, Preston was born, just as perfect. I gave everything I had to my boys. I fed them, dressed them, stayed awake when they were sick, and loved them more than anything in the world. Walter was a wonderful dad, too. He took them fishing on Sundays, taught them how to fix things, and told them bedtime stories. We were a close, happy family, or at least I thought we were. As Grayson grew up, he started to change. He was very ambitious. He didn't like living in a simple house. He wanted more. Preston always followed his older brother. When Grayson turned 18, Walter offered him a job at the bike shop. But Grayson said something that broke Walter's heart. I don't want to get my hands dirty like you, Dad. I'm going to be important one day. I saw Walter sitting on the porch at night after that, staring at the stars with sadness in his eyes. Years passed. Grayson worked hard and became successful in business. Preston followed him into the same world. They both started making lots of money, more than Walter and I had ever seen. At first, I was proud of them. They had escaped poverty. But then, my pride turned to sadness. They visited less. They called less. When they did come, they drove fancy cars and wore expensive suits. They looked at us with pity, like we were poor strangers. Mom, Grayson said one day, you and Dad should move somewhere nicer. This house is falling apart. He was right about the house being old, but this was the home where we raised them, where we grew old together. It was full of love and memories. Walter, always wise, told me, Cora, money has changed our boys. We aren't enough for them anymore. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself they were just busy. But deep down, I knew he was right. The change became clear when Grayson married Bianca Albright. She was from the city and looked down on us. The first time she came over, she wore high heels that sank into the dirt of our porch and a fancy red dress more expensive than anything I owned. Nice to meet you, she said coldly, barely touching my hand. She looked around our small home with judgment in her eyes. During dinner, she barely ate. Grayson whispered to her, next time, we'll take them to a restaurant. I heard him and it hurt deeply. Preston stayed single, but he was just like Grayson, distant and always busy. Even on holidays, he'd be on his phone talking about deals. Mom, I have to go, he'd say after a short visit. I have an important meeting tomorrow. Family Sundays stopped. Christmases felt cold. They brought us expensive gifts but couldn't wait to leave. Walter and I grew old alone. Walter still worked in his shop, even though his hands were weaker. I still sewed clothes, even though my eyes weren't as sharp. We never asked our sons for money. One night, Walter said, "Cora, it's not their wealth that hurts me. It's that their wealth made them forget us." He was right. Our sons didn't see us as their loving parents anymore. We were a burden to them. Grayson bought a $200,000 house in the city. Preston bought a $150,000 condo. They were rich now, but that only made them see us as a problem. "You should sell this place and move into a retirement community," Bianca suggested. "A retirement home?" After 40 years of building this house with love, Walter answered calmly, "We're fine here in our home." But I saw the looks on my sons' faces. They agreed with Bianca. They wanted us out. Then Grayson brought papers one day. "Dad, Mom," he said with a fake smile, "I can help you move. This house is only worth about $1,000. I'll add money so you can live somewhere better." To us, there was no better place. But Grayson only saw numbers. "Dad should retire," Preston added. "It's time for him to rest." "Working isn't a burden," Walter said sadly. "It's what keeps me alive." "Dad, you could get hurt," Preston insisted. "You're old now." They sounded like they cared, but something in their voices felt wrong. They were impatient, like they wanted us gone quickly. Soon, they brought real estate agents without asking us. They had the house appraised behind our backs. Then Grayson said something that left me speechless. "Bianca and I want kids soon. We'll need help with expenses. If you sell this house and move, that money could be your early inheritance." An early inheritance? He wanted us to give him money while we were still alive. That night, Walter and I stayed up late talking. "Cora," he whispered, "something's wrong. This isn't just greed. There's something darker here." I didn't know he was right. I didn't know a tragedy was coming, planned by the very people we trusted most, our sons. The last normal conversation I had with Grayson was 3 weeks before Walter's death. He came alone, looking serious. "Mom," he said, sitting at the kitchen table where he'd eaten breakfast as a boy, "no matter what happens, Preston and I will always take care of you." Those words comforted me then, but now, standing at Walter's grave, they sent chills down my spine. What did he mean by "no matter what happens"? The day everything changed was a Tuesday morning. Walter left early for the shop, like he had for over 40 years. I was in the kitchen making his favorite lunch, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, when the phone rang. "Mrs. Bellamy," a stranger's voice said, "I'm calling from Memorial Hospital. Your husband has been in a serious accident. You need to come right away." The words hit me like a hammer. My legs felt weak. I grabbed the doorframe to stay standing. "What happened? Is he okay? Is he alive?" "Ma'am, please come as soon as you can." That phone call started everything. The trip to the hospital felt like a scary dream I couldn't wake up from. My hands were shaking so badly that I couldn't even hold my car keys, so my kind neighbor, Florence, drove me. The whole way there, my mind kept saying, "This can't be real." Walter was always so careful at work. He checked every machine, every tool, every little thing. How could something like this happen? When we got to the hospital, I was shocked. Grayson and Preston, my 2 sons, were already there. Nobody had told them yet, at least not me. I was too scared to think about how they had gotten there so fast. "Mom," Grayson said as he hugged me tightly, "Dad is in really bad shape. The doctor said one of the machines at the shop exploded. He has really bad burns and a serious brain injury." Preston's eyes were red like he had been crying, but something about him didn't feel right. He didn't look very sad, more like he was worried or waiting for some kind of news. "Can we see him?" I asked. "Only one person at a time," the nurse said kindly, "and only for 5 minutes." When I walked into the ICU room, my heart broke. Walter was lying in bed, covered in bandages. He was hooked up to so many machines that beeped loudly. I could barely recognize him. His breathing was loud and slow, coming from a machine. I walked closer and held his hand, the only part of him that wasn't bandaged. "Walter, my love," I whispered. "I'm here. Everything will be okay. You're going to get better like you always do." Then I felt it. His fingers moved, just a little squeeze. His eyes twitched behind his eyelids. He was fighting. My Walter was fighting to stay alive. The next 3 days felt like 3 years. I never left the hospital. I slept in the hard chairs in the waiting room. Grayson and Preston stayed with me, but they didn't seem worried about their dad. Instead, they kept asking the doctors questions. I overheard Preston talking about medical bills and how much the treatments would cost. Grayson was on the phone, talking about life insurance and who would get the money if Walter died. "Mom," Grayson said on the second day, "we checked Dad's insurance. He has a $50,000 life insurance policy. Plus, he has workers' comp that could give us up to $75,000. I stared at him in shock. "Why are you talking about money? Your dad is still alive. I just want him to get better." "Of course, Mom," Grayson said quickly, but I didn't like the look in his eyes. They were cold, like he was doing math in his head, not thinking about his father lying there in pain. On the third day, Dr. Albright, an older man with kind eyes, took me into a small office. "Mrs. Hayes," he said softly, "your husband is very sick. The burns are infected, and his brain injury is worse than we thought. We need to be realistic about his chances." "What do you mean?" I asked, even though I already knew. "He might never wake up. We could keep him alive with machines, but he will never have a normal life again." It felt like my heart shattered. I had been married to Walter for 42 years. We had built a life together. How could I let him go? "We want to try everything," I said, crying, "no matter how much it costs." But Grayson and Preston looked at each other in a strange way. "Mom," Grayson said carefully, "we have to be practical. Dad wouldn't want to live like this. He always said he didn't want to be a burden." "A burden?" I shouted, furious. "He is your father, the man who worked every day of his life for us." "Mom, think about yourself," Preston said. "The medical bills will be huge. You could lose all your money." Again, all they cared about was money. That night, I sat by Walter's bed alone. I held his hand. "My love," I whispered, "I don't know what to do. They say you won't wake up, but I can't let you go. Please come back to me." And then it happened. His hand squeezed mine again, harder this time. His lips moved like he was trying to speak. I screamed for the nurses. "He's waking up. He's trying to talk." I cried. But when they came, Walter was still again. The nurse checked the machines. "Sometimes it's just muscle spasms," she said gently. "It doesn't mean he's awake." But I knew what I felt. Walter was trying to tell me something. 2 days later, early in the morning, I was dozing in the hallway when alarms started going off. Nurses ran to his room. "No, no, no," I screamed, running after them. They tried to save him for 40 minutes, but at 4:37 a.m., they told me Walter was gone. I collapsed by his bed, sobbing and holding him. He was still warm, but he would never come home to me again. An hour later, Grayson and Preston showed up. They didn't look surprised. They had papers and funeral home numbers ready. "We already called the funeral home," Grayson said calmly. "We started the insurance claim," Preston added. How could they be so cold right after their father died? The funeral was scheduled quickly. Grayson made all the decisions without asking me. He picked the cheapest casket and a short service. "It's what Dad would have wanted," he said. But I knew Walter. He deserved more than this rushed goodbye. The funeral day came. It was cloudy and cold, like the sky was crying. Florence helped me get dressed because my hands were shaking too much. I felt like an empty shell. When we arrived, I was shocked. Only a few people were there. Grayson, Preston, my daughter-in-law Bianca, Florence, and the pastor. Walter had lived in this town his whole life. Where were his friends? His coworkers? Where are the guys from the shop? I asked. "We didn't want to bother anyone," Grayson said quickly. "Dad liked privacy." That wasn't true. Walter loved people. He would have wanted them there. During the service, I watched my sons closely. Grayson kept looking at his watch. Preston looked nervous. Bianca was texting behind her veil. It didn't feel like a funeral. When it was time to throw dirt on the casket, I nearly fainted. Florence held me as I cried. The sound of dirt hitting the wood made me feel like my heart was breaking all over again. Then my phone buzzed. A text message. "I'm alive. "That's not me in the casket." I froze. My hand shook as I read it again. I replied, "Who is this?" The answer came instantly. "I can't say. They're watching. Don't trust our sons." I almost dropped my phone. Florence tried to help, but I hid it quickly. "Are you okay, Mom?" Grayson asked, looking worried. I stared at him. Was he lying to me? I forced a smile. "I'm fine. I just want to go home." That night, I sat alone in my quiet house. Could this be a cruel prank? Or was Walter alive? If Walter was alive, who was in the casket? I remembered how strange everything had been. The accident, the way my sons arrived at the hospital before me, the way they kept talking about money. I went to Walter's old desk. Inside a metal box were all his important papers. I found the life insurance policy. It had been raised from $5,000 to $50,000 just 6 months ago. Walter never told me that. Who had asked him to do it? Then I found another paper. A workers' comp policy from 2 months ago. $5,000 for accidental death at work, plus more money for injuries. It was a lot of money for us. My phone buzzed again. Another message. Check the bank account. See who has been moving the money. This wasn't a joke. Whoever was texting me knew too much. They knew about the insurance, about my sons, about everything. The next day, I went to the bank where Walter and I had kept our account for 30 years. Mrs. Chun, the bank manager, had known us for a very long time. She looked at me with kind, sad eyes. "Cora, I'm so sorry about Walter," she said softly. "He was such a good man." "Thank you, Mrs. Chun," I said quietly. "I came to check our accounts. I need to understand how much money we have." She showed me the bank papers from the last 6 months. When I looked at them, my heart stopped. Over the past 3 months, a lot of money had been taken from our savings account. In January, $1,000 was gone. In February, $3,000 was taken. In March, another $4,000 had disappeared. That was $8,000 in total, and I had no idea this money was gone. "Who took this money out?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Your husband came in himself," Mrs. Chin explained gently. "He said he needed the money for repairs at his shop." But this made no sense. I handled all the house money, and I always knew exactly how much we had. Walter never said anything about big repairs at the shop. We had never even talked about taking out thousands of dollars from our savings. "Can I see the papers where he signed for these withdrawals?" I asked. She gave me the receipts. They had Walter's signature, but something about it didn't look right. The writing was shaky and unsure. Walter always wrote clearly and neatly. "Mrs. Chun." I asked with my heart beating fast. Was Walter alone when he came here to take the money out? Or was someone with him? She thought for a moment. "Now that you ask, I think he came in with one of your sons once or twice. Grayson, I think. He said he was helping his dad because Walter had trouble reading the documents without his glasses." "Grayson. My son had been helping Walter withdraw money that I didn't know about, using Walter's eyesight as an excuse. But Walter's eyes were fine when he wore his glasses. He never took them off during the day. That afternoon, I stared at the bank receipts over and over again. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a new message. The insurance was their idea. They made Walter believe he needed it to protect you. It was a trap. The messages were right. The evidence was piling up. The big insurance policies, the missing money, Grayson being there when Walter signed papers I had never seen, his cold behavior during Walter's last days, and how quickly he arranged the funeral. A terrifying thought came into my head. Had they planned Walter's death? If so, how did they do it? And who was sending me these mysterious messages? How did this person know everything? The next few days felt like a nightmare. Every time Grayson smiled at me, every hug from Preston, every soft word from them felt fake, like masks hiding something dark. But I needed more proof before I could believe something so horrible. Then another message came. "Go to Walter's shop. Look in his desk. There are things you didn't see." I decided to go to the shop for the first time since the accident. Grayson had said a machine exploded, but when I arrived, the shop looked wrong. It was too clean. There were no burn marks on the walls, no broken pieces of machines, no mess. Everything was neat and tidy. "Where is the machine that exploded?" I whispered. I looked around carefully. Every machine was in its place and working perfectly. The welder, the compressor, the saw. Nothing was broken. So what had caused the accident? I walked to Walter's desk and opened the drawers. What I found made me shiver. It was a note in his handwriting, dated 3 days before he died. Grayson insists I need more insurance. He says it's for Cora, but something feels wrong. I don't trust him. I gasped. Below it, there was another note. Preston brought me papers to sign for the shop. He says it's for improvements, but I don't understand them. Why is he rushing me? My hands trembled. Walter had been suspicious of our own sons. He had seen something I had been too blind to notice. I kept looking and found an envelope with my name on it. I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from Walter. My dearest Cora, if you are reading this, it means something has happened to me. I've noticed strange changes in Grayson and Preston. They're too interested in our money, the insurance, and selling our house. Bianca is pushing them a lot. Yesterday, Grayson told me I should worry about my safety because at my age, any accident could be fatal. It sounded like a threat. Cora, if something happens to me, don't trust anyone blindly, not even our sons. I love you. The letter slipped out of my shaking hands. Walter had been afraid of his own children. He knew he might die soon. That night, Grayson came to visit me. He walked in with a fake smile and a bottle of wine. Mom, I've been thinking about your future, he said casually, pouring himself wine without even asking me. The insurance money is on its way. It'll be $15,000. How do you know the exact amount? I asked, pretending not to know. Well, I helped Dad with the paperwork, he said. He wanted to make sure you'd be comfortable. I knew that was a lie. Walter had never wanted more insurance. He had been pressured into it. And what do you think I should do with that money? I asked calmly. Grayson's eyes lit up. You could buy a smaller, cozy house. Or better, move into a retirement home where you'd be safe and cared for. Preston and I can manage your money to make it grow. Manage my money. They wanted control of everything. We just want to protect you, Mom, Grayson said sweetly. I forced a smile. Let me think about it. Of course, Bianca said, her voice fake and sugary. But not too long. It's for your own good. When they left, I sat in my kitchen, shaking with fear and anger. My own sons had killed their father and were now planning to take everything from me. That night, my phone buzzed again with another long message. Tomorrow, go to the police station. Ask for the report on Walter's accident. There are things you need to see. The next day, I went to the police. Sergeant O'Connell, a kind man who had known Walter for years, greeted me. The report on your husband's accident, he said, looking confused. What accident, Mrs. Bellamy? The explosion at his shop, I said. He shook his head. We don't have any report like that. There's no record of an accident at Walter's shop. None. My knees felt weak. But my son said he was hurt in a shop accident. That's why he was in the hospital. Mrs. Bellamy, the sergeant said gently, your husband came to the hospital on Tuesday, but not because of an accident. According to this report, he was poisoned. There was methanol in his blood. A lot of it. Enough to cause blindness, brain damage, and eventually death. I froze. Poisoned? Not an accident? Someone had killed Walter. Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked, tears filling my eyes. The family who signed the hospital forms asked us to keep it private, he explained. They said you were too emotional to handle the truth. The family, Grayson and Preston, they had lied to me and everyone else. They had made up the explosion story to cover their crime. Mrs. Bellamy, the sergeant said seriously, if you think something bad happened to your husband, we can open a formal investigation. I didn't just think it. I knew. My sons had murdered their father for money. That afternoon, Preston showed up at my house with flowers and the same fake smile. How are you, Mom? You look tired. I'm fine, I lied, watching him closely. Grayson, and I think you should sell the house soon. The market's good now, he said quickly. Why the rush? I asked. Well, old houses lose value. And you need money for expenses, he lied. I looked him in the eyes. Preston, you know your dad didn't die in a work accident. His face went pale, but he tried to stay calm. What are you saying, Mom? I went to the police, I said firmly. There's no report of any explosion. He looked even more scared now. Mom, you shouldn't be doing that. You're confused. The grief is too much for you. No, I said. You're lying. He stood up suddenly, spilling the coffee I'd made. You need rest. We'll talk later. He rushed outside and made a phone call, whispering urgently. That night, another message came. They'll come together tomorrow. They'll try to convince you you're crazy. Don't believe them. And don't eat or drink anything they give you. The next day, Grayson and Preston arrived together with Bianca. Their faces were full of fake concern, and they brought a bag of pastries. Mom, we're so worried about you, Grayson said in a sweet voice. The neighbors say you're acting strange. That's not true, I thought. It was another lie. Bianca brought your favorite pastries, Preston added, holding the bag. And coffee from that brand you love. I remembered the warning. Don't eat or drink anything. Thanks, I said carefully, but I already had breakfast. But Mom, Bianca said, smiling in a way that didn't reach her eyes, you've lost weight. You need to eat. I'm fine, I said firmly. Grayson gave Preston a strange look. I remembered seeing that same look at the hospital when the doctor told us Walter wouldn't make it. Mom, Grayson said, sitting closer. We need to talk. Preston and I spoke to some doctors about you. About me? I asked. Yes, he said. You've been asking strange questions, visiting the police, obsessing over little things about Dad. It's normal after a big loss, but it's dangerous. Preston nodded. Dr. Albright says women your age often become paranoid after their husbands die. Paranoid. They were calling me crazy because I had found the truth. I'm not paranoid, I said strongly. I'm just asking the right questions. What questions? Grayson said sharply. Like why there's no police report of Dad's accident, I said, my voice steady. Why the shop was spotless if a machine exploded. And why you two took $5,000 from our savings without telling me. The silence in the room was so strong it felt heavy. No one spoke. My two sons and my daughter-in-law looked at each other with nervous faces. Mom, Preston said finally, there are easy explanations for everything. Your husband only took that money out of the bank to fix up the house. He wanted it to be a surprise for you. A surprise? I asked, feeling my heart beat faster. Grayson, my older son, quickly added, yes, he was planning to fix the roof and paint the house. He wanted to surprise you for your birthday. But I frowned. If that's true, where are the workers? Where are the tools? Why doesn't anyone in town know about this supposed work? Grayson's smile faded, but he kept talking. And about that police report you keep mentioning. Not every accident needs a report, especially if it happens on private property. I felt anger rise in me. That's not true. Sergeant O'Connell told me himself that any accident that causes serious injury must be reported. You're lying. Bianca, my daughter-in-law, leaned toward me with a fake sweet smile. Cora, she said softly, we're only worried about you. That's why we think it's best if you go to a place where you can get special care. A nursing home, Grayson added quickly, for people who are grieving. There are doctors, nurses, and fun activities to help you feel better. Preston spoke next. And while you're there, Mom, we'll take care of the hard stuff. Selling the house, managing Dad's insurance money. You won't have to worry about a thing. My heart sank. Their plan was clear now. They wanted to declare me crazy, lock me in a home, and steal all of my money. First, they had killed Walter, my beloved husband, to get his insurance money. And now, they wanted to take everything else from me. And what if I say no? I asked them firmly. Grayson smiled coldly, and it sent a chill down my spine. Why would you say no? We only want what's best for you. Because this is my home, I said loudly. This is where Walter and I built our life together. This is where I raised you boys. Preston sighed loudly. Mom, you can't live in the past forever. Dad is gone. You have to accept that and move on. I have accepted it, I snapped, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give up my life and money. The fake kindness on my sons' faces disappeared. Grayson suddenly stood up from his chair. If you won't listen, we'll have to take more serious action. What do you mean? I asked, feeling my body shake. It means, Grayson said coldly, that we can start a legal case to have you declared mentally incompetent. We have proof of your strange behavior. We have doctors who say you're suffering from paranoia. Doctors? I gasped. What doctors? I haven't spoken to any doctors about my mental health. Dr. Albright already signed a report, Preston said smugly. He says, based on what we told him, you're not well and need special care. I stared at them, horrified. A doctor who had never even seen me had written lies about me because my sons paid him off. So, you can either cooperate, Grayson said, leaning closer, or we'll take you to court. Either way, you're going to get the help you need. I could barely breathe. This was a threat. If I didn't hand over my money, they'd use the law to steal it from me. I need time to think, I whispered, trying to stay calm. Of course, Bianca said sweetly, but her smile was fake. Just don't take too much time. It's for your own good. After they left, I sat alone in my kitchen. My body shook with fear and anger. My own sons, my own flesh and blood, had killed their father, and now they wanted to take everything from me, too. That night, my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen and saw a long message. Cora, this is Julian Croft. I'm a private investigator. Walter hired me 3 weeks before he died because he didn't trust Grayson and Preston. They poisoned him with methanol in his coffee. I have recordings of them planning everything. Tomorrow, at 3 p.m., meet me at the corner cafe. Sit at the back table. I'll be there. Finally, I knew who had been sending me those mysterious messages. And now, I would have proof to get justice for Walter. But I also knew time was running out. My sons had shown their true colors. If I didn't act soon, they'd lock me up in a care home while they spent every penny of the money that had cost Walter his life. The war had begun. I was only a 66-year-old woman, but I had something my greedy sons didn't. I had the truth, and the truth always finds a way to come out. That night, for the first time since Walter's death, I smiled. Walter had not died for nothing. His carefulness, his gut feeling, and his decision to hire a private investigator would bring him justice. Grayson and Preston thought I was weak. They thought I would give up, but they were wrong. I was a woman fighting for my husband's memory, and that made me stronger than they could ever imagine. The next day came. My heart raced with nervousness and hope. I chose my nicest purple dress, the one I always wore for important occasions. I wanted to look serious and ready. At 2:30 in the afternoon, I left the house and walked toward the cafe. Every shadow on the street made me suspicious. Every person I passed could be a spy my sons had sent to follow me. Maybe I was paranoid, but now it felt justified. The cafe was half full. I went straight to the back table and sat down. My hands shook as I ordered chamomile tea. At exactly 3 p.m., a tall man with gray hair walked toward me. He looked serious but kind. He carried a brown folder under his arm. Mrs. Bellamy, he asked in a low voice. I nodded, too nervous to speak. I'm Julian Croft. I'm very sorry for your loss. Walter was a good man. He sat across from me and placed the folder on the table. Before I show you this, he said softly, you need to know it's going to be painful. Are you ready? I've been ready since you sent me your first message, I said firmly. Julian opened the folder and pulled out a small voice recorder. Walter came to see me a month ago, Julian began. He was worried about your sons. He asked me to investigate them. He pressed play. Walter's familiar voice filled the space between us. Julian, if something happens to me, it won't be an accident, Walter's voice said. Grayson and Preston keep pressuring me to raise my life insurance. Yesterday, Grayson gave me papers to sign. He said it was for Cora's protection, but when I read them, I saw that the clauses would benefit them, not her. Tears filled my eyes. Hearing his voice was like having him back, but his words confirmed my worst fears. The recording continued. Preston has been asking me strange questions. What time I eat breakfast, if Cora comes with me to the shop. He says he's worried, but I don't believe him. Julian paused the recording. This was 3 weeks before Walter's death. Now listen to this. He played another recording. This time, it was Grayson speaking on the phone. No, we can't wait any longer. Dad is starting to get suspicious. Yes, I already have the methanol. It works perfectly. It'll look like a heart attack or a stroke. Mom won't be a problem. After he dies, she'll be so broken we can do whatever we want with her. Tears ran down my face. My son's cold voice made me shake. There's more, Julian said softly. This one is from the day before Walter died. Preston's voice came next. Everything's ready. Tomorrow, Grayson will put the methanol in Dad's coffee. We told him it was a special vitamin drink from the doctor. He'll drink it. The symptoms will make it look like a stroke. By the time anyone finds out, it'll be too late. I covered my mouth, horrified. My sons had not only planned Walter's murder, they had carried it out with cruel precision. How did you get this? I whispered. Walter asked me to put recording devices in your house, Julian said gently. He didn't know exactly what they were planning, but he was afraid. Julian showed me photographs. Grayson was buying a small bottle at a hardware store. He paid cash and used a fake name, but I caught it on video, Julian explained. The date was 5 days before Walter's death. Here are their bank records too, Julian added, sliding more papers across the table. Grayson owes $70,000 to a loan shark. Preston has $40,000 in gambling debts. They were desperate. It all made sense now. Walter wasn't just murdered for greed. They were drowning in debt. Why didn't you go to the police right away? I asked. Because they bribed the doctor who treated Walter. He wrote the death certificate as heart failure from an accident, not poisoning. Without medical proof, these recordings weren't enough. But now, I said, feeling stronger, we have everything. Exactly, Julian said. And there's one more thing you need to know. My stomach dropped. What is it? Julian played one last recording. Once we have Dad's money, we need to get rid of Mom too, Grayson said. How? Preston asked. Same way as Dad. But this time, we'll make it look like a suicide. A widow too sad to go on. Nobody will suspect. My whole body shook. My sons had planned to kill me, too. Mrs. Bellamy, Julian said gently, I know this is hard, but we have enough proof to make them pay. We just have to act quickly. They're meeting Judge Holloway tomorrow morning to have you declared mentally incompetent. I stood up from the table, anger and determination burning in me. Then we have to act tonight. Exactly, Julian said. But first, look at this. He showed me one last photo. It was of Walter leaving a medical clinic I didn't recognize. 3 days before Walter died, he had gone to a clinic in the city for a full health check. The doctors tested him carefully. The results showed that Walter was completely healthy. His heart was strong, his blood pressure was perfect, and there were no signs of sickness. This proved one thing for sure. Walter did not die from natural causes. He was poisoned. This was the final piece of proof we needed. Walter had been murdered by his own sons. I held Julian's hand tightly. Thank you for keeping your promise to Walter, I told him. Now, let's get justice. That very night, Julian and I went straight to the police station. Sergeant O'Connell was on duty. It was quiet there because it was already 8 o'clock in the evening. Sergeant O'Connell, I said firmly, I need to report a murder. My husband, Walter Bellamy, was murdered. The sergeant looked shocked. Murder? Mrs. Bellamy? But his death certificate says he died from heart problems after an accident at work. The death certificate is a lie, I said, putting Julian's folder of evidence on his desk. My husband was poisoned with methanol by our own sons. For 2 whole hours, Julian and I showed him all the proof. We played the audio recordings of Grayson talking about methanol. We showed pictures of Grayson buying it. We gave him the bank papers showing the stolen money. We gave him Walter's health results that proved he was fine before his death. We even had recordings of Grayson and Preston confessing to killing their father and planning to kill me too. The sergeant listened to everything. His face grew more serious with each piece of evidence. When we finished, he leaned back in his chair and shook his head in disbelief. This is terrible, he whispered. Mrs. Bellamy, are you sure you want to go through with this? Once we arrest your sons, there is no turning back. Sergeant, I said, holding myself tall and strong, those men murdered my husband for money. They were planning to kill me too. They are no longer my sons. They are criminals who must face justice. We'll need to dig up Walter's body to prove he was poisoned, Sergeant O'Connell explained. Do whatever you need to do, I said without hesitation. The sergeant immediately called the district attorney. Even though it was late, the seriousness of the case made the DA come to the station. After looking through all the evidence, the DA signed arrest warrants for Grayson and Preston. We will arrest them at dawn, the DA said. We must act quickly before they destroy any more proof. Julian walked me home that night. Are you sure you'll be okay alone? He asked gently. I'll be fine, I said. I'm not afraid anymore. Justice is finally on my side. I couldn't sleep. I stayed in the kitchen, looking at photos of Walter on the walls. For the first time since he died, I didn't feel only sadness. I also felt hope and relief. Justice was finally coming. At 6 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang. It was Grayson. Mom, you need to come to Preston's house right now, he said quickly. Something terrible has happened. What happened? I asked, pretending to be worried. I'll explain when you get here. Please come quickly. I knew it was a trap. I had heard the recordings the night before. I knew they were planning to kill me sooner than planned. But I also knew the police were on their way to arrest them. I'm on my way, Elite. Instead of going to Preston's house, I stayed in my kitchen, waiting. At 7:30, I saw several police cars driving toward my son's houses. My phone rang again and again, first Grayson, then Preston, both sounding panicked and desperate, asking where I was. I didn't answer. At 9 a.m., Sergeant O'Connell knocked on my door. Mrs. Bellamy, he said, we've arrested Grayson and Preston. They are charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to kill you. My legs felt weak, but this time it wasn't fear. It was relief. How did they react? I asked. Grayson denied everything at first, the sergeant said. But when we played the recordings, he broke down. Preston tried to escape through a window. We had to chase him for 6 blocks. That afternoon, Bianca, Grayson's wife, came to my house. She was crying loudly, very different from the cold, calculating woman I knew. Mrs. Bellamy, please, she begged. Drop the charges against Grayson. He isn't a bad man. He was just desperate because of his debts. This is my fault, too. I pressured him so much to get money. I stared at her with no sympathy. Bianca, your husband poisoned my Walter. He was planning to murder me, too. There's no excuse for that. But we're family. Bianca shouted, desperate. Think about what this will do to the family. The family died the day you decided to kill Walter for money, I said coldly. Now please leave my house. 3 days later, Walter's body was dug up. The lab confirmed everything Julian had found. There were lethal levels of methanol in his body, enough to explain all his sickness before his death. The whole town was shocked. The news spread quickly. Nobody could believe 2 sons had killed their father for money. The local newspapers called it the cruelest crime of the decade. As weeks passed, we learned more. Grayson owed $7,000 to dangerous loan sharks. Preston had lost $5,000 gambling illegally. Both were being threatened. They thought Walter's life insurance money was their only way out. But their greed made them raise the insurance amount so much that Walter himself became suspicious. We also learned the doctor who signed the fake death certificate had been paid $5,000 by Grayson. The doctor was arrested too, for lying and obstructing justice. Julian explained everything Walter had done to prepare. Your husband was smarter than they thought, Julian said. He knew something bad was coming. He didn't know exactly what, but he suspected his life was in danger. He hired me not only to investigate your sons, but also to protect you if something happened to him. Did Walter know they were going to kill him? I asked. Not for sure, Julian said, but he feared it. That's why he made sure to record everything. He wanted the truth to come out even if he wasn't here. My heart ached. Even in his last days, Walter had been protecting me. He had planned everything so justice would win. 2 months later, the trial began. Grayson and Preston were charged with first-degree murder, which meant 25 years to life in prison. The courtroom was full. People from all over town came. Reporters filled the room. Neighbors, Walter's old co-workers, and strangers all wanted to see justice. I wore my best black dress, the one I wore on my wedding day, now a symbol of love and mourning. Julian sat beside me, giving me strength. Grayson and Preston walked in handcuffed, wearing orange prison uniforms. Seeing them like that hurt, but I felt no pity. Only deep sadness, because they had chosen greed over love long before they killed Walter. The prosecutor was brilliant. He showed each recording one by one. The room was silent as Grayson and Preston's voices filled the air, planning their father's murder. When the recording played where they planned to kill me too, people gasped in horror. One woman left the courtroom crying. "Ladies and gentlemen," the prosecutor told the jury, "this is not just family greed. This was cold, careful planning. These two men murdered their father for money. They wanted to kill their mother too." Grayson and Preston's lawyers tried to say they were desperate, but the evidence was too strong. The recordings, the bank papers, and the poison in Walter's body all proved the truth. When I testified, I stood with shaking legs but a steady voice. "I thought I had a good relationship with my sons," I said, looking straight at them. "I raised them with love. Walter worked day and night for them. I never thought that love would lead to his murder." "Did you suspect your sons could harm him?" the prosecutor asked. "No," I said sadly. "That's the most painful part. I trusted them completely. When they told me Walter had an accident, I believed them. When they rushed the funeral, I thought they were grieving. I never knew they were hiding a murder." Grayson bowed his head in shame. Preston looked defiant, but I saw tears in his eyes. The prosecutor then played the recording of them planning my murder. "Once we get Dad's money, we need to get rid of Mom too," Grayson's voice said. The jury and audience gasped. "How did you feel when you first heard this?" the prosecutor asked me. "I realized I lost my sons long before I lost my husband," I said, voice trembling. "The boys I raised were gone, replaced by strangers who'd kill for money." Julian testified too, explaining Walter's fears and how he collected every piece of proof. The medical examiner described the poison in detail, proving Walter had been slowly poisoned to death. After 3 days of powerful testimony, the trial ended. "Grayson and Preston are not victims," the prosecutor said in closing. "They are predators. They murdered Walter and planned to murder Cora. They do not deserve pity. They deserve justice." The jury took 6 hours to decide. The courtroom was silent when the judge read the verdict. In the case of the state versus Grayson Bellamy and Preston Bellamy on the charge of first-degree murder of Walter Bellamy, the judge said, "We find the defendants guilty." The courtroom was full of whispers and shocked voices. Grayson sat down hard in his chair. He finally understood how big and terrible his actions were. Preston stayed stiff, looking straight ahead with no feelings on his face. The judge's voice was loud and clear. "On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder against Cora Bellamy, we find the defendants guilty." The judge didn't wait. He gave the punishment right away. "Grayson Bellamy and Preston Bellamy, for the planned murder of your father and the plan to kill your mother, I sentence you to life in prison. You will not be allowed out for at least 30 years. When I heard those words, it felt like a heavy weight was lifted off my shoulders. Justice. Finally, Walter got justice. After the trial, many people hugged me. They told me they were proud of me. My dear friend Florence cried with me. Her tears were not sad. They were tears of relief. "Cora," she whispered softly, "Walter can rest in peace now." That night, I went home. My house felt different. It didn't feel like a place of pain and sadness anymore. It was my home again, the home where Walter and I had been happy for 42 years. A week after the trial, Julian came to see me. "How do you feel?" he asked kindly. "At peace," I said honestly. For the first time since Walter died, I could sleep well. I knew Walter was resting too because his murder had not gone unpunished. I donated all the life insurance money to help victims of family crimes. I told Julian that money was stained with blood. I could never spend it. My own savings were enough for me to live simply for the rest of my life. 6 months later, I got a letter from prison. It was from Grayson. "Mom, I don't deserve your forgiveness," he wrote. "But I want you to know that I'm sorry. The money, the debts, the pressure, they blinded us. We lost our hearts. Preston and I destroyed our family for $5,000 we never even enjoyed. Tomorrow, I will end my life. I can't live with what we did. Please take care of yourself, Mom. Tell Dad we're sorry we were such bad sons." I couldn't get there in time to stop him. The next day, Grayson was found dead. He had hanged himself in his cell. Preston fell apart when he heard about his brother's death. He had a nervous breakdown and was sent to a prison hospital for his mind. 2 years later, I live quietly in my little house. Walter's old shop is now a beautiful garden. I grow flowers there and take them to his grave every Sunday. Julian is now one of my closest friends. He comes often to check on me. Sometimes neighbors ask if I miss my sons. My answer is complicated. I miss the little boys they used to be, but those boys were gone long before Walter died. The men they became were strangers to me. I have learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about love, respect, and loyalty. Walter was my real family for 42 years. My true family now includes my friends who stood by me through the trial. Justice didn't bring Walter back, but it gave me peace. On quiet nights, I sit on the porch where Walter and I used to drink coffee. Sometimes, I feel his spirit there, proud of me for being strong, even though I lost my sons forever. 5 years have passed since that awful day in the cemetery. The day I got the first message that changed my life forever. Today, I'm 71 years old. My white hair shows all the storms I've survived, but my eyes shine with peace, Florence tells me. Our house is still my safe place. I painted the walls soft yellow, Walter's favorite color. His shop is now the prettiest garden in the neighborhood. Red roses, white carnations, and bright sunflowers grow there, always facing the sun, just like Walter taught me when times were hard. Julian Croft, the investigator who helped me, became my chosen family. Every Wednesday afternoon, he visits me. We drink coffee on the porch while he tells me stories about his cases. Sometimes he asks, "Do you regret reporting your sons? Would it have been easier to keep the secret?" Never, I always say. The truth hurts, but lies destroy the soul. The Walter Bellamy Foundation for Victims of Family Crimes, which I started with the life insurance money, has become something huge. Now we help many families each year. We have lawyers, investigators, and therapists who help families like mine. 6 months ago, a woman named Marlo came to us. She thought her brother had killed their mother for money. Her story felt so much like mine. Greedy relatives, pressure to sell property, strange behavior after the death. We gave her a private investigator, legal help, and emotional support. 3 months later, her brother was found guilty of murder. She came to me, crying, and hugged me. "Mrs. Bellamy, you saved my life," she said. "If you hadn't been brave enough to tell the truth about your sons, I would never have been brave enough to tell the truth about my brother." Moments like that remind me why I had to go through all the pain. Preston is still alive, but he is not the same. After Grayson died, his mind broke. The doctors say he lives in guilt, believing Walter visits him at night to scold him for the murder. Preston has tried to take his own life 3 times, but the guards keep him safe. Sometimes he sends me letters. They're messy and full of apologies. At first, I read them, hoping to find the son I raised. But I realized the letters just reopened wounds I had healed. Now I keep them unopened in a shoebox. Maybe I'll read them one day. Maybe not. I have the right to protect my peace. Bianca, Grayson's wife, left town after the trial. I heard she changed her name and moved away. I don't blame her. It must be hard to live with the name of a murderer. Sometimes I wonder if she knew what Grayson was planning. But that's all in the past. I've learned to live in the present. Our town, Spring Creek, will never forget this story. It's a warning about greed and betrayal. Some people see me as a hero. Others think I'm cruel for sending my sons to prison. I don't care what they think. I know the truth, and it gave me peace. My health is good for my age. My doctor says it's because I finally let go of the sadness and stress. The body heals when the heart is at peace, he said at my last checkup. Sunday mornings are my favorite. I pick fresh flowers and go to Walter's grave. His headstone says, "Walter Bellamy, beloved husband, betrayed father, honorable man." His love was stronger than his death. I talk to him there. I tell him about the families we've helped, about the thank you letters I get. Sometimes the wind blows through the trees, and I feel like Walter is telling me he's proud. "Do you know something strange, my love?" I whispered during my last visit. I don't feel angry when I think of Grayson and Preston anymore. I just feel sorry for them. They had all our love and they chose hate. They had a family that cared for them and they chose betrayal. They could have been good men like you, but they chose evil. Last week, a reporter came to interview me for a documentary about family crimes. She asked what advice I would give to people in similar situations. Family is not an excuse for crime, I told her. Love isn't blind. True love has boundaries. If someone says they love you but hurts you for money, they don't really love you. It's never too late to seek justice, no matter who the guilty person is. This year, on the 5th anniversary of Walter's death, I planned a big ceremony to honor him. Over 200 people came, neighbors, families we've helped, local officials. It was amazing to see how Walter's tragedy became a force for good. Julian gave a moving speech. Walter Bellamy died because of his son's greed, he said. But his legacy lives on in every family who finds justice thanks to his wife's courage. Evil tried to destroy him, but good turned his story into hope. At night, before I go to sleep, I look at old photos of Grayson and Preston as children. I see them playing, hugging their father, laughing with me on Christmas. I let myself cry for those sweet boys. But I don't cry for the men they became. They chose their path. My story became bigger than just my own pain. It's now a symbol that truth is stronger than lies, and love is stronger than betrayal. Tomorrow is Wednesday. Julian will come for coffee like always. I'll bake his favorite treat and tell him about the new thank you letters I got this week. After that, we'll work in the garden, planting flowers for spring. Life is quieter now, but more meaningful. I've learned that family isn't about blood. It's about shared values, respect, and love that never harms. Walter, I whisper at night, I kept my promise. I found the truth. I sought justice. And I turned our pain into hope for others. Your death was not in vain, my love. Did you enjoy my story? Which city are you from? Share in the comments. If you like this story, you can send a super thanks to help me keep making more stories like this. Thank you so much for your love and support. Check out the 2 new life stories on the screen. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. See you next time.